Hello and welcome to YouTube. Across the Park podcast are now on YouTube. We heard your messages and we are going to have a crack at this YouTube thing. If you've never heard us before, we are a podcast on Everton and Liverpool Football Club. Myself, Ian Mills, is a blue. Phil Roberts in your top left is a red. Bottom left is Gary Murray, also a red. And I'm delighted to be tag teaming tonight with someone whose surname is Everton royalty. Mel Harvey, thank you for joining me. Let's get those reds. How are you?
Yeah, let's do it.
No, thanks, Mel, for joining us. So the podcast it's two reds and two blues. We talk about the weekend's football. We look ahead. We have a few games, a little bit of this week in history. So let's get right into it. Mel, unfortunately, we have to start with our cup exit. Last week, we unfortunately went out to Queen's Park Rangers. It's a cup that we've never done historically well in. And again, last week, there was a little bit of social media feedback. We got some fans weren't happy with the performance, the team. How do you view the game last week, Mel? QPR beat us on penalties.
Yeah, super disappointing. I think we're all realistic enough to know that we're not going to be challenging for the top 2 or 3 or possibly even 4 positions in the league this year. I'm big enough to admit that. So I would like to see us going for the cup. And I would like to see us go for it, I've got to be honest. I don't really see the point of us resting players for the league. No. So I was quite disappointed. I know we had bad injuries, but I would have liked to have seen us really go for it, maybe bring the players off after we'd done something rather than leaving them on the bench. So, yeah, I was really disappointed. I think a cup run of any cup would give us a bit of a lift. It'd be really nice. And I, for one, would love a trip to Wembley. So, yeah, I was very, very disappointed.
Yeah, no, I will have the same. It's one of those cups that every summer I say, listen, that's the one. Let's this summer go for it. We get a new manager, we get new ambition, and I always say, let's just win that cup first, because teams such as, I hate to say it, Liverpool have used that as a catalyst. Manchester City have used it. I think Manchester United and Chelsea under Jose Mourinho have used it. So I was really disappointed in that myself. But look, let's put that in the rear view mirror. We got 3 points on Saturday. Let's concentrate on that.
For me, Mel, Millsy.
I know, yeah, that was the quickest brush over a contact that I've ever known.
It was a bit of a brush over, wasn't it?
We are not sticking on QPR beating Everton, boys and girls. We are not doing it. Let's talk about, Mel, let's talk about Everton versus Norwich on Saturday. There was a number of maybe individual performances we'll get to and ask some questions on. But first and foremost, how important was 3 points for you coming on the back of a cup exit and a league loss at Aston Villa last week?
It's massively important. I mean, we all know Norwich are not great. They already look doomed, I've got to be honest, much as I hate to say it. They're the games you've got to win. They're the games that you should be winning convincingly. They're the ones that you should just win and move on and look towards the games. So, yeah, good convincing win, good score. Not sure the performance was quite as good as it should have been against a team as poor as that. I've got to admit, that was that game. We were over in Manchester watching the Cortinas on Saturday. So,
all right, okay.
We made a weekend of it, but I did catch up on the match as soon as we got back on Sunday morning. And yes, there were some good individual performances, but they're the games you should be winning. And I think against a team of Norwich's standing, who really probably wasn't enough. But it's 3 points, it's a clean sheet, and we move on.
Yeah, listen, there was a little bit of negativity, and that surprised me, really. Our social media was flooded with a little bit of negativity, saying that a better team would have won on Saturday against Everton because we never got out of second or third gear. For me, Mel, I'm a little bit like we didn't need to get out of that second or third gear. Norwich are one of those teams who were going to go down this season. Let's make no bones about it. One of the worst teams in the league. I don't think we had to get out of second gear, so I'll stay on this sort of positive track. I think we'll come in the podcast later on. We'll look towards Saturday. That's going to be a whole different kettle of fish. One individual who is sort of already split in opinion is Solomon Rondon. Now look, he's not fit. Let's make no bones about it. That striker is not fit. He's not played for 3 or 4 months. Is it unfair for Evertonians like me? Because I don't think he's doing enough against QPR and Norwich, and I'm not really buying the unfit thing? Am I being unfair there, Mel, for you, or should I be more patient with Rondon?
I kind of take the point that he's not fit. We need a little bit of patience, but I don't really think that any team at this stage of the season is in a position to be having players that look like they're still in pre-season. We're in a bit of a tough spot. Calvert-Lewin isn't fit, so he has been forced into playing him. But should we really have players who are fit at this part of the season? I don't know. I'm 50 on him, I've got to be honest. I think we'll get away with it against teams like Norwich, but we're not going to get away with it against the bigger teams.
The thing is with Rondon, he's not going to be your go-to striker, is he? He's not going to start in the bigger games when your other players are fit. We know what Rondon is. We've seen him in the Premier League a few years ago, but the big thing is that was a few years ago. That was when he was fit. That was when he was a bit more in his prime of his career. Now he is sort of coming towards the end, and is he going to get that fit where he's going to be able to do a proper job for you? I'm not so sure. I don't think he's going to be that player. I think he's going to have to be someone who, he's going to be your Stephen Corker.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, I mean, I'm with you. He's definitely not the first choice. But then you can't afford to have players in your squad who aren't good enough because, as we've seen, we've got a very, very thin squad. And if we want to do anything this season, we've already got a one cup, but there is still the FA Cup, and you need to have players in your squad who are fit enough and who are good enough to fill in, because you just don't know what's going to happen, and we are very.
Okay, I think Mel's just crashed there a little bit. You're back with us, Mel. You just froze there a little bit.
I think we're back.
You're back with us. Okay, now all I was going to say is, on the positive side, Mel, how impressed have you been with Townsend and Demarai Gray? Because for me, when the rumours came around that we were interested with them, I was deflated. When we signed them, I was deflated. I didn't think that they were the signings that would bring us on. But here we are with the same points total as last year, when fans like me were peering over the team. And largely, it's down to those two players. How impressed have you been with Demarai Gray and Andros Townsend?
Very impressed, particularly with Demarai Gray. I think he makes quite an old-fashioned footballer. I love wingers. I love ball coming into the box from the wing. And I think for the money, he could end up being the bargain of the season. I know it's still early days. Townsend, you can't argue with it. I saw a stat today about what those two have done so far this season, and it's very, very impressive. I think out of the two of them, I'm most excited by Gray. But I think Townsend is clearly doing something for us so far, and long may it continue. I was like you, I wasn't overly excited by either of those signings, but
No.
I'm always happy to be proved wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, let's move away from the joy of Everton winning, and let's move on to, Mel, I think even more joy of Liverpool dropping points. Let's bring the Reds straight into it. Phil, Saturday night football.
Wait there,
Liverpool.
Don't try and gloss over us going through in the Carabao Cup just because you went out.
Oh, okay. Let's start with there. So Liverpool beat Norwich on, was it Tuesday evening, the same time that we played?
Yeah.
Gary, I'm going to get you on Brentford. You are going to speak about Brentford at some point. But you've just said there that you went through in the Cup. I think last week on the podcast, you were maybe thinking that to be a weakened team. Pep Linder's done the press conference, you said last week, instead of Jurgen Klopp. Were you pleased initially by the starting lineup and obviously going through?
Yeah, I was pleased, to be honest, that we had the good mix of first-team players and the youngsters coming into the team. That's always what you want to see when you're trying to blood the youngsters in. You know, you don't want them coming into a team where it's the players that they're used to playing against. You want to see what they can do in amongst the players that they will be playing against if they come into the team. And for me, they didn't really do much wrong between them.
No, I can't disagree, Gary. I think Minamino looked well. He looked good. And one thing I did want to mention is Bradley, who played right back. He was the youngster in the side, getting blooded. And he did have some moments where he was kind of at fault, led to chances for them and stuff early on. But the biggest testament that I can pay to him is that he showed that he had the right character to make it in this game, because he still had his chest out and he improved as the game went on. what can sometimes happen with a youngster is they make a mistake early, they become a shrinking violet, and they need taking off really. But that didn't happen.
You see what happened with Nico Williams, didn't we?
Yeah,
he came in and had a few decent games, but then I think he made one mistake. Was it a big mistake in like the United game or something?
Yeah,
and then don't think we've seen him since.
Yeah.
So he's that obviously that type of player who hasn't been able to bounce back. But as you say, yeah, this young kid's obviously he's got the mentality to be able to fight back from little mistakes that he makes.
Yeah. Gary, just how much does it mean to you? We discussed last week about like Klopp not doing the interview. Maybe it doesn't mean a lot to him, and is that disrespectful? And we were kind of saying, well, if we go on to win the league or the Champions League, and we've sort of let the League Cup, we've sort of threw it away, we wouldn't be that bothered. But is that your stance, or were you really happy to go through? And
is anyone not happy to go through a cup competition? You're seeing how much it means to the Evertonians there, and it's not taking a dig. Obviously, they're absolutely desperate for silverware. But even though this is sort of the lowest of the competitions that you can win, it's still a competition to win. Man City win it every year. I think they've 4 years on the bounce. Yeah. They don't take it lightly. I know they can basically put 2 or 3 teams out that could compete in it anyway. But for me, it's a cup competition. You're only at the start of the season. What can you win? 4 competitions. Just go for them all. Yeah. Why not just go for them all?
So the only reason that you might not want to is because of our squad depth or lack of, and really hinder us going forward. But I think the likes of Minamino, Origi, Joe, all getting minutes, it helps them when we do need to rely on them later in the season, doesn't it?
Definitely, yeah. And as we've seen last season, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how many players you will lose at one time for how long. So if these players aren't fit and they're coming in cold, we could have 3 Rondons on our hand instead of having 3 players who are fit and ready to come into the team and hit the ground running.
He knows what he's saying at all times, Gary.
The banter has started. We've been on YouTube for 11 minutes and we're already getting our striker ripped by the Reds. Look, I'm gonna pin you on this. I tried to get Brentford in there, but look, let's move on to Brentford because you've moved.
Oh, sorry, Mills. Just before we do, I just want to say that the young kid who come on at half time for Naby Keita, Tyler Morton, was it?
Yeah.
He slotted into that game like he'd been playing there for 20 years. Honest to God, even the senior players were giving him balls that they give for Fabinho in big games where you think, as a young kid, you probably avoid trying to give him them. And he mastered the challenge without even, at times, didn't even realise that it was a kid playing. He was just slotted in that well. I'm really pleased about seeing how well he played because, there has been times where we've really needed the number 6. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he can come into the team right now, but on that performance, if he carries on taking on, getting better and better, we've got a player on our hands there.
Yeah, deserves the mention, definitely.
All right, listen, Phil, I'm going to go to you because Gary has now bounced this Brentford question twice. So I'm going to go to you. You've got to be disappointed with that because Brentford, look, they may have the new bounce going on with them. They beat Arsenal in the opening game. Are they a team that are going to be struggling come March, April and May? I think so. So to not win there must have been disappointing for you, mate.
It was massively disappointing, and especially considering the way some of the other results went earlier in the day in our favour. And you think, and push on. You put a gap between us and the chasing pack already. It's not but positive, a positive thing. And I don't know if I agree that they're going to be like really, really struggling. Brentford. I think they look good for it. I think they looked the way they played. Okay. Credit to them. To be fair, I don't want to say that we were a mess or whatever. A lot of their goals, they forced with good playing and good pressure. If you're analysing the 3 goals that they scored, and I'm thinking about the actual Liverpool team who do that, how you break them goals down, I don't know. I don't know if you've seen them, Mel or Millsy, but it was pretty chaotic in the box, It was like ping pong in our box. And I was thinking, how do you break that down? How do you analyse it? And I think the proper analyst at the club will go back further than the goalmouth scramble and say, why were so many crosses coming in from the right? How were we caught out, as deep as we were in our box and things like that. And I think that's where the analysis comes, to try and pick apart what was going on in our box, Gary. Not an easy job, is it?
Not for the goals. I'd agree with you for that with the goals because, as you say, it was a lot of ping pong and it was a lot of, like, I don't know, a bit of a scramble, but I don't think I wouldn't call their goals scrambled goals at the same time because they worked them well. They did, the free kick routine that they had. That was they done well for that. Although it was just a fizz cross in from the wing. It was still well worked. They knew exactly what they were doing. The little flick off the player on the front post, whether that was supposed to be a shot on goal or whether he was actually flicking it to the back post, we'll never know. But what they've done was obviously worked on the training ground. They've probably seen that we're weak towards that type of free kick routine, and it's worked for them. So fair play. For me, it was more throughout the game. I think that defensively we were a bit slack, and it's not often we can say things like that about Liverpool. Certainly this Liverpool side with it was our strongest back four. Let's make no mistake about it. And there was mistakes. I think they got in far too often. They got behind our defence more often than we should have allowed them. But you can only give credit to Brentford for that. I think they were good for it.
Yeah, I do.
Why is that happened? Sorry, boys. Why has that happened on Saturday? But it's never happened before because teams have done this to you. Teams have put two up front. They put the long ball in. So why was Saturday such a problem?
I don't think it was so much just a long ball going in. It was calculated passes. For me, they weren't a long ball team. They weren't just lumping the ball up like Sam Allardyce teams. They were calculated passes, really. And that even Tony's a handful, whether it's on the floor or whether it's in the air, he's a good player. And I think you'll see that towards the end of the season. He'll be the player who keeps them from being in danger, in my opinion. I'm with Phil, what he said at the start. I don't think they'll struggle at all. I think they'll probably finish mid-table, thereabouts, and they'll be really good for it. I don't think we'll be the only team they take points off either in like the top four. I think they'll do well in the big games because what we've always said is when these like lower teams, as we call them, come and play against Liverpool, we want them to come at us because that's when we can tend to pick them open. These came at us in a way that we couldn't really handle, and they, as I keep saying, they were good for the draw. And at the end, right at the end, they could have won it with Tony, only from being offside. So,
Gary, I'm going to do the unthinkable here and level some criticism at Jurgen Klopp and see if you
Wow. I am here for this.
Not very often, do we?
No.
I think at 2-2, I think it was Curtis Jones is stripped and ready. Firmino, Bobby Firmino's ready to come on, and Jones puts that screamer in and makes it 3-2. And seconds after that, Klopp continues with the sub that he was already going to make, which is take Jones off and put Bobby on, at which point we're kind of 4-2-4. And I'm thinking, you've got to change your mind there after that goal goes in. I think the game was screaming out for someone who can control it, play sensible football. And I think it was screaming out for Milner to come on, steady the ship. But he's gone 4-2-4 in a game that was already open. For me, it was like an obvious error, but I'm no one to criticise Klopp, but I wasn't the only person saying it seemed obvious. Don't know what your thoughts on that, Gary.
Yeah, I think I still would have went through with the substitution, but yeah, maybe the personnel would have been different because he obviously didn't think Jones was doing enough for whatever regard, whether it was going forward or defensively. We obviously at the time needed a goal because it was 2-2. So it's probably more going forward, which is why Firmino's coming on. But Jones isn't a defensive midfielder. He's never going to be that. So at that time, once the goal goes in, yeah, I probably agree. You're more likely to bring a Milner on. If it was already 3-2, you'd have probably seen it was Milner getting stripped rather than Firmino. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you in that sense. But at the same time, just before they equalised for the third goal, Salah goes through 1-on-1 and tries to sort of get in between a chip and a shot.
Oh yeah,
and puts it over the bar. And for me, if that goes in, you're not even looking at that substitution. It's 4-2 and the game's over. So in one way, it's worked in the sense that we got that extra opportunity and it would have killed the game off. In another sense, it obviously hasn't because we've ended up drawing the game. But if Salah puts that away, then it's a different conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fine line. Hindsight's always 20/20, isn't
That's it, yeah.
But at the time, no, I did think we should have shored it up. It just seemed the other. But anyway, other good performances on the day. Going forward, we were obviously good, weren't we? We scored 3 goals. Obviously, Jota gets his goal.
that's been coming as well. You know, he's still been getting in a position. You know, people have been saying he's not been the same player since he come back from the international and stuff. But for me, he has been. He just hasn't been putting the ball in the back of the net. That's the only difference. He's still been getting the chances. He's still been getting in the positions. He's still been working hard. It was just eventually it was going to go for him again, and it did in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you've got to point out Salah. You know, he's again come up with another goal. Could have had another 2 probably, and he's cemented his place as our fastest ever to 100 in the league. One game.
Can't say enough good things about him. Try and say it every week. Just unbelievable player. One of the best players I've ever seen in the flesh, easily. You know, we're lucky to have him, and you know, if we can afford to pay him that 500 grand a week he wants, pay the man. Just pay the man.
Boys, can I just ask on Salah? Now, I could be way off here. There could be people watching this who say I'm way off, but what I gauge, and it may be an age thing that we're a little bit older than what we used to be, but some of your fans romanticize on Torres, on Suarez, but Salah for me, from the outside, what a player. If you named your best front 2 for Liverpool now, would Suarez be in it over Salah? Because sometimes I think maybe that some Liverpool fans do say that. But Salah for me is unbelievable.
I think it's because of the hybrid position that he plays. It's quite a new thing in football, this wide forward. And so you're comparing him to wingers or you're comparing him to forwards and stuff. And because his role's a bit unique, you wouldn't say he's a better forward than Fowler or Suarez or Torres, like centre forward. But is he a better player? I think he's a better player than Fowler and Torres, probably, yeah.
Mills, you've got to realise how big that is for Phil to say he's better than Fowler, because Fowler's his hero.
Yeah.
I get the centre forwards versus the wide forwards arguments, but if you were going into a European Cup final with a Suarez in his prime or a Salah in his prime, who would you take?
Should we save that for the question we've got later?
Yeah, we've got a question in social media.
Right, okay.
To be fair though, whatever the answer is to that question, Mills, it's not an insult to either one of them.
No, okay, fair enough.
Listen, the very top of the tree there.
Listen, we'll move on.
A big thing on Salah is if you as the outsider looking at Salah and seeing his goals and his assists that he gets every season, you're saying he's a striker. You're saying he's a forward. Always watching him every week, and you see the graphics coming out of his heat map in the game. He's an absolute winger, and for him to get the goals that he gets from the position that he plays is absolutely remarkable. So if you're saying as a centre forward, you're picking Salah or Suarez compared to just a forward, I think it's a different answer.
I think the word there you've used there to cleverly get out of that is forward. I think, was Ronaldo a striker when he was in his prime in 08-09? I don't know. Was Wayne Rooney ever a full-on striker? I don't know. But look what they did. We'll save this for social media. Anyone who's new watching us, what we do is we review the games, we have a little bit of fun in the middle, and we preview the games again. So what we're going to do now, Mel, is we're going to move on to a topic called This Week in History. And I am so happy that we are about to land on the 27th of September, 1999. A friend of the show who's been on Across the Park podcast, Super Kevin Campbell. He scored at the Cop End. It was 1-0 on a Monday night in September. Mel, what are your memories of that game? It was so long ago, but for me, it was such a great night. What about your memories?
Well, I'm probably the oldest person on the screen tonight, so I'd actually moved to Glasgow that year, so I wasn't living in Liverpool at that point, which I used to normally like when it was a derby game. I used to like that 200 miles away up the road, and I couldn't get all the ribbon and all the grief that I was going to get off all the Reds that I know that the next day at work. And on this occasion, I would have loved to have been going to work the next day in Liverpool. Sadly, as I say, I'd moved 200 miles away. So it was Monday night. So it must have been, was it Monday Night Football?
Monday Night Football,
like
Sky, yeah.
Yeah,
it was.
I definitely watched it, yeah. At the time, the flat we were living in was in a listed building. So we didn't have Sky, so we used to have to go to the pub. So it was one of the only games that you go to the pub to in Glasgow where there would be quite a big crowd in to watch it. And I was not confident at all, because you just never were you? You know, I'd lived through some good derbies, but I'd lived through a lot of bad ones for us. But what a game had Everton, didn't it? Had I mean, looking back at it now, he was clearly onside, but there was a few shouts at the time. But, you know, you get what for us was a brilliant goal. Then the real derby tackles and everything that were flying in, well, fouls, sending off, a keeper getting sent off, you know, less subs on the bench than you would have now. So it really had all the drama. And at the end of it, obviously, it was a good result. Just watched the footage back again early, and the thing that struck me the most was how young Steven Gerrard was. It was just frightening to see. But yeah, a couple of real choice tackles. I think Liverpool were lucky they didn't have another player sent off, weren't they? That foul by Owen as well was.
Yeah, Michael Owen's on I remember that game. Michael Owen's on a 2-footer, didn't he, quite early on? And he got someone. I remember Steven Gerrard was sent off, and then we had Francis Jefferson sent off, Santa Festival. What was, I mean, I watched it again, Mel, the same as you. I watched it back today because I knew what was coming tonight, and the amount of Evertonians who were in the Kop. There was a guy, God love him, on the front row in full-on blue Lacoste tracksuit. He went arsed. He was jumping for it. He was going for it. It was. You wouldn't
really see that now, sadly. There used to be a lot more mingling in the crowd before that, and obviously around that area, you wouldn't see that anymore. But it had everything, didn't it? I love. I've got to be honest. I love a good gnarly derby like that. So it was good fun to watch it back, and it brought back a lot of memories. And I mean that the punch up between Jefferson and Festival was just. I just don't really feel like you'd see that these days. The game's definitely changed, hasn't it?
No, it wasn't even a punch-up. It was like handbags. I think they slapped each other, didn't they? It wasn't even like, if you're going to get sent off, at least do something to get sent off for. But they were sort of like are you going to hit me? Am I going to hit you? Or
they were half going for it, waiting to be split up.
Yeah. But you know, it's funny too. Obviously, two scouts got sent off, and just the real. You could see there was the real passion. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of quality in the game. Definitely not. But funny at the end when you hear the commentary at the end, and they say that Everton FC and Liverpool were languishing in mid-table, and I was thinking, oh, for that to be happening now.
Well, it was September, so we got a little bit ahead of ourselves. Then sometimes that does happen. I think the last time that happened, we were top of the iTunes chart, weren't we? We were loving life. But no, listen, I mean, looking back, we've had Kevin Campbell, we've had Don Hutchison and Michael Ball on the podcast, David Weir on the podcast, and they all refer to that night as one of the best moments in their Everton career, especially Kevin Campbell. He was on our podcast. He was singing songs. He was loving it. So that is the This Week in History for the Blues. Myself and Mel were absolutely delighted to be able to bring that to you on YouTube, but I've got a sneaky feeling we're about to get done by the Red This Week in History. What have we got, Reds?
Yeah, to counter your win at Anfield, we thought we'd pick one of our many wins at Goodison. So we're looking back to 2008, when another striker you mentioned before, you know, you're talking about Salah, Suarez, but the impact this lad had when he first started in our team. Fernando Torres scored a brace, and we won 2-0 at Goodison Park, and what an absolute dream of a man that man was.
Especially in the derbies, he had Jagielka's numbers, didn't he?
Listen, I'm not totally agreeing that. There was a couple of times that Phil Jagielka went home with Fernando Torres down his car seat.
I seem to remember he had Vidic's number, and he had there was someone, an Everton player, who always used to rinse her every time he scored. I feel like it's Jagielka, but is that right?
No, I'm not for that. You know, I'm not having it. Not having it.
It was that night anyway. Okay. Yeah, do you know what?
Was that 2-0 at Goodison, was it?
That was 2-0. We had a goal disallowed late on. Kite was done for a foul, but I think I remember that being a bit harsh as well. But it would have been 3, but finished 2-0 in the end. But this day, these games are all on the same day, by the way, just different years. And in 2014 was another derby on the same day. Gerrard scored a free kick early doors. And then it was that shinned effort from Jagielka, who we've just been talking about, Cop End.
What a strike.
Just to give you another little...
What a strike. And what a celebration.
Yes. I was in the away end. and Aruna Kone was on crutches in the away end. And when Jagielka scored, he couldn't have picked the worst place to be on crutches. He was almost in the air, being carried onto the pitch because we'd equalised so late on. That was a good derby. That I think Balotelli missed was it a 1-on-1 or something?
I missed that game. I was at the time I was in a golf society and we were playing our own Liverpool v Everton Ryder Cup in Llandudno as the game was going on. And I just remember I checked my phone just as we were teeing off, and Gerrard had scored. I was like, oh, well, that's that game over then. 1-0 at Anfield early on. We've won. And as it's going on, it's still 1-0, still 1-0. And then just on one of my cousins is a blue nose. He was playing at the golf as well. Towards the end of the game, I just heard him going berserk somewhere on the course. Couldn't see him, could only hear him. And I just thought, oh, no, he's done it, haven't he? And then only when we got back to pub,
this week in history?
Only when I got back to pub later on, and I seen the goal, and he shinned it into the top bin. The worst strike he's ever hit, but the best at the same time. Couldn't believe my eyes.
I love how bitter you are, Shindy. And you accuse us of being bitter, and you're saying that a screamer was shins. I can pick a number of derby goals that you got lucky with. A number of. Don't you dare bring that to me tonight.
Rooney's overhead kick in the Manchester derby that he shinned in as well.
Oh, did he fall over there, did he? Okay, so that is...
Who won the goal?
Oh, yeah.
The Reds won it every year.
Who won the goal? And my second question is, who on earth organised an Everton versus Liverpool golf day on the same day as the derby?
I know, yeah. Not guilty.
Okay, so that is the this week in history. We do this every week. If anybody has any special games or special, memories that they want us to cover, please get in touch. We are at acrosstheparkpodcast.co.uk on the Tinternet. If you have Facebook, like Phil, who's very, very old, get us on Facebook, at Across the Park Podcast on Facebook. If you have Twitter or Instagram, like the young ones, like me and Gary and Mel, we are at Across the Park PC on Twitter and Instagram. Mel, the next thing that we do is we go toe-to-toe with the Reds in a game called Higher or Lower. Phil is the quizmaster. I'll let Phil explain how we play it.
Yeah, so this week we've got 5 questions. It's about transfer fees this week. I've got a blue transfer fee and a red transfer fee in each round, and I'm going to give you one of them and ask if the other one is higher or lower. So we'll start with the blues this week. And I'll give you, we've got Fernando Morientes. We sold him in 2007 to Valencia for 4.5 million. But is 4.5 million higher or lower than the transfer fee received for Per Koldrup in 05-06 when he went to Fiorentina?
The legend that is Per Koldrup.
I know. I feel like it should be lower, but I feel like this could be a trick question. That way. I think they're trying to trip us up here.
I don't know. It's so 4.5 million for Morientes.
Yep.
I think I'll go with Mel, but I would say that we got lower for Per Koldrup, but I'll go with Mel.
So as a team, you go higher for Koldrup or lower?
I genuinely can't remember. I genuinely can't remember because it was probably that insignificant. I feel like it should be lower, but just like a trick question.
Okay, on the basis that Mel can't remember, I am going to take over the armbands for the Blues. I'm quite confident that Per Koldrup got a lower transfer fee than Fernando Morientes did.
4.5 million.
Yeah.
Gary?
I'm going to go lower on the basis that Morientes, even though he didn't have a good spell at Liverpool, he was still renowned as a quality forward. So I'm thinking that his transfer fee is going to be higher than Koldrup's.
Both teams have slotted the back of the net for both teams. 1-1. 3.6 million.
You didn't listen to me.
Okay, Gary, you get the chance to go first on this one. So, Jelavic, 13-14. Everton sold him to Hull City for 7.02 million. But how much did Liverpool sell Milan Barros to Aston Villa for 05-06? Or not how much, but was it higher or lower than 7.02 million?
Oh, Barros to Villa. It's not even really an obscure one, that, but I absolutely can't remember.
Gary was about 4 when that happened.
Barros to Villa. I'm going to say Barros went for more, about 8.5.
Right, Blues.
Mel, I have no idea. I'm going to leave this one in your hands. Have a free hit.
I'll say higher as well.
Okay.
Milan Barros sold for 7.69 million to Aston Villa, so it was marginally higher. So what's that? Still level, are we?
Yeah, 2-2.
Okay. In 2010-11, Javier Mascherano sold to Barcelona for £18 million. In 12-13, Everton sold Jack Rodwell to Man City. Was that more or less than £18 million?
How on earth are Jack Rodwell
been less.
and Javier Mascherano in the same bracket?
He was your captain in England at the time, weren't he?
Yeah. He was getting talked about big licks at this time. That's
probably why it all went wrong.
Probably.
Is this on the Blues or the Reds? Is this our one, is it?
I think the Blues this time, yeah.
Again, Mel, I am not willing to put my neck on the line. If you're willing to, I will go with you.
I think it was higher. Shouldn't have been, but I think it was.
Yeah, I agree. I seem to remember the figure being something ridiculous for Jack Rodwell.
I think about 20.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think it's around 20 million.
I've got around 20 in my head. It shouldn't be, but I've got around 20 in my head.
Well, I hope I haven't messed up on this one, but the figure that I saw was 13.5 million for Rodwell.
Really? Oh.
Wow.
So a miss for both sides there, and we're still at 2-2. Okay, Gary, you get the chance to go first. Fellaini sold to Man United for 29.16 million, 13-14. In 16-17, we sold Benteke to Crystal Palace. Was it more or less than 29 million paid for Fellaini?
Oh, God. The figure that comes to my mind as soon as you said Benteke was 31. But thinking about it more, I think it might be lower. I've got 31 in my head, but I'm going against my initial thought. I'm going to say Benteke went for less.
Blues, any thoughts?
No use.
Crystal Palace.
Yeah, no use. It's just because Liverpool sell players for like ridiculous amounts of money. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Benteke went for like 70 because it's them.
Palace haven't got that sort of money. Palace got more than 30 million to spend, or did they have more than 30 million to spend back then?
I don't know. What do you think? I'll go with you again. I'm a little bit.
No, it's your turn this time. You went with me last time.
Oh, you're putting it on me, so it's my name out there now to get ridiculed for.
Well, I'm just thinking about how much money they would have to spend. That seems a lot of money for a club like that.
Okay, I am gonna go for it. I'm gonna say that Christian Benteke went for higher than that.
Should have listened to Mel, mate. He went for 28 million.
Oh, sorry,
I can't believe Palace was even about 28 million. There you go. It just shows you, doesn't it?
Threw it all at Benteke, the entire budget. Okay, so Gary's nipped in. So I'll give the Blues the opportunity to answer first here. I'm just thinking which way round to ask her. Okay. El Hadji Diouf, we sold him to Bolton 05-06 for 4.32 million. You sold Stephen Pienaar to Spurs 10-11. Was it more or less than 4.32 million?
I think I should answer this first if this is the last one.
Go on then. Does that make
sense?
Only
because if I say the same as them, then I've won no matter what, haven't I?
Okay.
So what was Diouf?
Diouf was 4.32 million.
4.32. Pienaar to Tottenham. Pienaar was regarded as one of their better players, wasn't he? I'm going to go Pienaar went for around six or 7.
Okay. So is it on us, Mel? I've got to jump in because I know the answer to this. I guarantee I know that Stephen Pienaar went for less than that.
Did he?
Really?
Okay.
There you go.
Millsy, you were right to jump in because Pienaar went for 3.24 million to Spurs.
Wow.
And I know that because he was ticking his contract down. He had about 6 months left on his deal, and we had to just take some money for him. But it was buttons.
Because you're right, what you say he was one of our better players at that point in time. That little
Definitely,
that they had down that side was brilliant, and so that was a bit of a steal by Spurs there, wasn't it?
It was definitely, yeah. So where are we, Phil? Is that full time as a draw, or
that's it? Full time, 3-3,
3-3, like Liverpool and Brentford.
a classic.
Well, because you've said that, I'll take it now. I'm happy now again. I was good to bed, but I'm happy now. Okay, so anyone who's new, again, thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube. We really hope you're enjoying it, and we hope you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, please, and keep coming back for more. If you're listening on the podcast, as always, on your run or your commute, thank you as always. But why not give us a little view on YouTube as well when you get home? Our next segment is that we always invite questions. We invite questions on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and the website, and we're going to try and answer some of those for you now. Phil, you've got some for us, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm desperately flicking through my phone to get to the right one. Not professional for the TV now. Okay, we'll start with this question. Carl via the website. He said, so obviously this is a question for the Reds, Gary, because he said, with Man City on Sunday, for me, tomorrow versus Porto needs wholesale changes. Play Becker, Virgil, Salah and Henderson, but change everything around them. The Brentford result dropping points cannot be followed up by dropping more a week later in this league. That's going to be so close. Do you agree?
No, I don't. Because what if we do make wholesale changes and drop points in the Champions League and then still get beat anyway against City? Then you've rested your team for nothing. It happened to us a few years ago under Rodgers, didn't it? I think he rested Gerrard against Real Madrid, and then we went on and lost, and it was Man United the next game. We lost the next game against Man United or something like that.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen before, and I don't want to see it happen again. I'd rather us do what Mel was saying about the QPR game before. I'd rather us play the stronger team, get the job done, and then take our better players off. So we'd be able to take Van Dijk off, take Salah off, take Fabinho off, and you're resting your more important players. Not that, the likes of Mane and Varane is important, but at the same time, the players you want to keep fit are Van Dijk, Fabinho, Salah. So for me, go strong, get the game won, and then rest what players you can. And then don't forget, it's Tuesday and then it's Sunday afternoon. So it's not like we're playing Wednesday and Saturday. We have got quite a few days rest. So for me, no, go strong in both competitions and try and win both games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you get your games won in the Champions League as early as you can. If you do that, if you get 10 points on the board, you're typically through, aren't you? You can talk about resting your squad at that point for me. I understand, Carl's point of view. He's sort of prioritising the league. Carl's maybe thinking, well, win your home games in the Champions League, go stronger home. And there's potentially some merit to that. But I don't think Klopp thinks like that. I've heard him talk. I can only put my best team out for the next game. Then we'll assess who's tired, who needs a rest going into City and stuff like that. But I guess we haven't got long to wait and see what happens. Okay, next question's from Beck. This is for everyone. What's the go-to chippy tea and what's the best derby that you've seen? Mel, what's your go-to chippy tea?
Oh, my go-to chippy tea is very traditional. Fish chips and mushy peas.
Can't argue.
And preferably on Friday night, obviously, but if I've got a hangover on a Sunday as well. And I'm partial to a cheese and onion pie as well at times, but
nice.
Yeah, I'm quite traditional.
Millsy, we had the question last week that was more about like what TV programs you watch, not your basket at all, really. Chippy tea, right up your street. This is your one, mate. What would you go for?
Mate, I have got chippies who are waiting for me by the phone because they know it's coming. I am an avid chippy orderer, but it all depends. I'm happy with the fish and chips. I can do a salt and pepper chicken. I can do a nice dough pizza, which we're sort of, affiliated to, the great dough pizza in Liverpool. Mate, I can give me a nice doner kebab. Give me it all. Give me it all. I am not ashamed to say I'm an avid member of the Just Eat family. Phil, what about you? What's your go-to order?
Mills, how you're not 30 stone, I'll never know.
Well, the camera is well positioned. Well positioned.
I'm a salt and pepper man, mate. That's all.
Yeah.
My go-to is always salt and pepper ribs, salt and pepper chicken, salt and pepper something. And every now and again I go, do you know what? I need to mix it up. I need to go for a chow mein, a vermicelli or something. Every time I do, I regret it. So I kind of learned my lesson and I stick to what I know. And that's salt and pepper. Salt and pepper box. Amazing.
Salt and pepper box is a game changer, my friends. I mean, I'm with you on that.
You need quite a lot to drink afterwards, but Gary?
Standard crispy chili beef, fried rice, chips, 2 rounds of bread.
You've ordered that before.
Every week.
Nice. And what about the best derby we've seen?
Oh, that's difficult. I don't know whether to pick a last minute Gary Mack or Lucas Leiva having pot shots at 4-0. Just don't know.
I go first.
For the pure humour of it, I'm going to say the Divock Origi.
Horrible. You horrible man. Have you staged this question?
This has come in from someone called Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, it's coming from Terry McGivern.
It's from Beck, this. Nice one, Beck.
All right. So you've had your little digs there. Best derby. Mel, you must have seen some amazing Merseyside derbies. What's the favourite?
1984, Graham Sharp.
Yes.
Just can't argue with that. It was probably the first time I'd been to Anfield. So I'm old, but I was quite young in those days. 84, wasn't it? So I was probably 12, and can't argue with that. I mean, Sheedy when he scored and he gave the 2-finger salute to the cops as well. Yeah. But I'm going with that goal from Graham Sharp. 1984. It was a brilliant team. It went on to be a great year, and I don't even think the Reds could argue that it's not one of the best goals that's ever been scored in a derby.
Yeah, I wasn't there to see it.
Yeah, it's still played now, isn't it? People still put that on social media. That Graham Sharp goal with Grobler is just like a cat falling off a washing line. He hasn't got a clue where he is. And
never seen it.
And you see the I think the home end and the centenary stands is just blue, and they're running on the pitch, and that's a game.
You used to get a lot more mixing than definitely, but it was just an amazing goal. And people say, did Stevens actually mean the pass? And he absolutely meant the pass. And it was just, you're going to have to go a long way to see a better goal than that.
Yeah. Look, listen, I'm not going to be able to top that, but I'll give you my personal best Merseyside derby was 1994 when Big Joe Royle took charge in his first game, and Everton were bottom of the league. We were doing nothing. And Liverpool, as always, were always right up there. And big Duncan Ferguson just put the cape on that night, and he scored a goal at the Gladys Street. He got the assist for the second goal later on for Paul Rideout. It was electric. I went home as a young boy that night. I was just so in love with that football club. And even now, I still look back, and that is that's the big moment for me where I just fell in love. And it was Everton beating Liverpool on a Monday night in November, and the big man, Duncan Ferguson, was at the centre of it. So that is my most favourite Merseyside derby.
You know what? I'm just going to throw a special mention out to the FA Cup semi-final. It wasn't so much one of the better games, but for me, the day out, the atmosphere on the day, you went 1-0 up, didn't you? Half time, and we were obviously at much the better side. We had Suarez and Carroll playing up front, and that one when we made the comeback and we had the Suarez goal, the Carroll goal. Just everything surrounding that in the stands, the journey homes, being on the motorway with the Blues next to us and just giving loads of stick and having loads of banter coming home. Just everything about that day for me was another one that's got to be up there.
Very nice. Okay. This is a question from Ian via the website. It's for you directly, Mel. He mentions that he's met your dad a few times, says he's a lovely fella, and he's old enough to have seen him with Kendall Ball and Royal. Great days, he says. Just likes to know, how is he? Is he still regular at the match and stuff?
Yeah. he wasn't so much last season because his health wasn't as great last season, but he's been right back at it this season. He actually took my mum on Saturday because I wasn't going, so she had to drag the blue suit out of the cupboard and put that on. And yeah, he is. He's back. He's good. We're going to Man United on Saturday. We're actually guests of Man United on Saturday, so we're really looking forward to that one. Although it's a very early start, and he likes to be really, really early, so I think we'll probably be leaving at about 8:30 to go over to Old Trafford on Saturday. But yes, he's good. He's enjoying going to his football. He's very much enjoying watching my nephews and niece are all decent footballers, so he loves going to watch them play as well. And hopefully we might have a future footballer in the family. You never know. But yeah, he's really, really good, and he's definitely back at it and enjoying the start of the season as we all are.
Great to hear. Okay, I think this question's a little bit of bait. It's coming from Gary's brother, Peter. Question for the pod. Would the Blues accept 9th this season?
Horrible
I didn't realise
question.
that coming from Peter.
So we just skip that, Mel. So let's just not answer that at all. That's a horrible question.
Although that might be
I'll
bait.
answer it.
Is
No,
that
I
not
wouldn't.
realistic?
I wouldn't accept 9th. I wouldn't accept 9th. Absolutely not. I think we've got to show some improvement this season, and I know we've not really spent any money, but no, we need to be far more ambitious than that. So no, and it's a horrible question.
Old school answer there, Mel. Right. Okay, this one's Martin. Gary, he thinks Andy Robertson needs taken out the side. Tsimikas has looked promising, and despite Robbo being brilliant since we signed him, he's out of form, and that's as good a reason as any to take someone out the side. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I said a couple of weeks ago when Tsimikas had a couple of games in the side that, you know, he didn't look out of place. He was really good defensively. He was good going forward, throwing loads of balls in the box. Got a couple of assists during the games that he got as well. And that I wouldn't be, you know, too disheartened with seeing him come into the team. I take on board the point. Robertson's certainly not been at his best the last couple of games that he's played. For me, I don't think he looked fit. I think since he had that injury, I feel like since he's come back, he hasn't looked his normal self. I think I'm going to put that down to fitness more than form, because, you know, I don't really remember Robertson having bad form at any point during the last couple of years. So yeah, I certainly wouldn't be disheartened to see Tsimikas come in. I'd quite like to see it. You know, if he comes in the normal back with the other back three, Van Dijk, Matip, and Trent, then see what he can do. You know, going back to the question we had before about the Porto game, I wouldn't see it as resting Robertson for the City game if Tsimikas come in. For me, that would be Tsimikas getting an opportunity to stake his claim in the side. Yeah,
I mean, go back to the Shankly Paisley days. The mantra was, if you come in and you play well, you keep the shirt until you don't play well. Simple as that. Things have changed a bit with regards to managing squads, and I think the argument for Robertson staying in is, if it is fitness or form, knowing the heights that he can reach, do you keep playing him until he reaches that fitness and form? The only way you get him back to that level. And also, when you're talking about the back four, it's about relationships and understanding and consistency. So that's another argument for keeping your best players, despite the dips in form that come along the way. But I just think it's a remarkable testament to Tsimikas that we could even be having this discussion, because last season you would never have thought it was on the cards that Robertson might be losing his place in the first team based on the form of you know, the backup left back. So I mean, I'm all right with it either way, to be honest. I'm all right to see, you know, whatever Klopp decides on it. I know that's a bit of a cop out, but if Robertson gets dropped, I'm okay with it, and I can see the reasoning behind it. But if he stays in, I think there's reasoning behind that too. So that's that one.
I don't know about it because I don't watch them as much for obvious reasons. But is it that Robertson's not playing well, or is it that Tsimikas is done really well when he
I'd say it's a little bit of both, to be fair.
Right.
Robertson's certainly not at the standard that we're used to seeing him over the past couple of seasons. And Tsimikas coming in is doing everything Robertson normally does. He's really good defensively. He blocks crosses. He's always in the right positions, but at the same time gets forward just as much. And he's thrown balls, and he's got a few assists this season already. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
Okay, we talked about James last week.
I'm a Scotland fan here, you see, so so believe it or not, so it's interesting for me to know what you know.
Oh, Mel, any time that these are slagging their players off, I am all for it. I do this podcast in long format to rip Andy Robertson. I'm all over this.
It's very hard for me because I support Scotland, but I'm not a big fan of Andy Robertson for obvious reasons. So it's always a bit of a mixed one for me. So it's quite interesting to know he's not playing well. He can play well in a blue shirt. Let's just put it that way. I don't think he plays well in a blue shirt.
Okay, we had one about James last week. We're going back to James again. Anthony Power via the website.
Sorry, is it Anthony Power or is it Rodriguez's brother?
He said, sorry to bring James up, but with him now being sold, I wanted to ask some questions. What do you think that Rodriguez was ever going to... Oh, sorry. Do you think that Rodriguez was ever going to be used this season? The club seems to have been trying to find a buyer since the day Benitez was appointed. Do you think the club should have focused more attention on getting players off the books that clearly aren't up to the required standards rather than prioritising Rodriguez? Why do Everton have these financial problems? In fact, I think that was the question from last week, actually, Mills. You can have your turn and answer it anyway.
That bottom question there, why do Everton have these financial problems, is... Look, I was a massive James Rodriguez fan. I'm not too sure whether you were, Mel. I wanted to see him. I was maybe naive in thinking that a full Goodison Park and him contributing into assists and goals and wins would have been just fantastic to see, because probably one of the most gifted players we've had in a number of years, arguably the highest profile signing we've ever made. When you see his face in Times Square, all over the Albert Dock when we signed him, and the feel-good factor, I wanted it to work. As to why we had to get rid of him, I personally think, I could be wrong, he was just the final straw, the final bad financial decision that's been happening for a number of years, where we've finally said it's not working, and he was just the last one. If you look back to 2017, when someone was allowed to pay 24 million for Morgan Schneiderlin, 45 million for Gylfi Sigurdsson, 25 million for Davy Klaassen, to bring Wayne Rooney back on what I imagine to be a massive, massive contract, to give Sam Allardyce 18 months, to allow Carlo Ancelotti to have a contract where he can walk for nothing, to sign Gabaman, Keane, Delph. There's been so many bad financial decisions. I think he was just the last one. And I was desperate for it to work because of such a talent that he was. I talked about you, Mel.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was really super excited when it happened last year. And probably for all the reasons you're talking about. You know, I work in PR and marketing, so I saw it as a huge marketing opportunity for Everton, and I know that not a lot of fans want to hear, but it is something that all clubs need to do, because that's another good revenue stream. So the fact that he had, you know, all these Instagram followers, you saw it opening up avenues into South America in terms of kit sales, overseas tours, this kind of thing. So from a business point of view, I think it's really disappointing that it didn't work. From a footballing point of view, it's really disappointing for me that I never got to see him play in the flesh. I just wanted to see him play. You know, he's gone. We need to move on. It's just one of those things. I spent the last year walking my dogs and going for a run past his house every day, just hoping I could, you know, catch a glimpse of him.
You pervert, Mel. You absolute pervert.
Not like that. I just wanted to say hello. He actually pulled up in our street one day to make a phone call, and my husband had gone out. He texted me and he said he's out there and run out to sign a programme for one of the kids. And by the time I got down the road, he'd gone. But it was that exciting. You know, I've seen a lot of players play for Everton, but for me, it was a real marquee signing for so many different reasons. And I did find it really, really, really exciting from a football point of view, from a business point of view. So obviously, I'm gutted that it didn't work. We really struggle with the whole financial fair play thing. It's so complicated, but to do with the revenue that the club can bring in of a weekend, and obviously we don't bring in as high a revenue as what we would like to spend to get to that level of success, because we're so held back by the ground and what we can do on the corporate hospitality side. So for so many reasons, it was dead exciting to have this player come. I think it was said the other day, he was only ever going to play 50% of the games. Really, that doesn't sit comfortably with a lot of people, that someone who's earning that kind of money is only going to play that number of games. But when you look at some of the assists, some of the passes, some of the great football, and that he was responsible last season when we were all stuck in the house and it was the only thing that could cheer us up.
Yeah.
It was great. So for me, it's super disappointing. I really would have liked to have seen him stay and create a lot of excitement around the club. But then again, when you look at the likes of Gray, what we've paid for and probably what he's earning in comparison, what he's done so far this season, from a pragmatic point of view, you've got to say it probably was the right decision. I just find it really, really disappointing that we just don't get to see that kind of big superstar. All you can hope is that it's going to change in years to come.
What are you going to brace Brands Everton on now?
Well, I know, it is that thing. It was brilliant from marketing. It was brilliant from a business point of view. It was, I remember when he died, I was saying, he's got the most Instagram followers of any footballer in the Premier League. And my husband, who is a Red, by the way, turned around and said, yeah, but he's got to do it on the pitch. And he did. He did at the beginning, but as soon as the came, he's not his type of player. The club desperately needed the money, needed that wage off the books. I just find the whole thing really, really disappointing, but I can understand the reasons for it.
Okay. Another question. This one's Nick Morris on the website. He wants to know who's the best keeper, defender, midfielder, and striker that both fans have ever seen for their team. I think it's easy for us. We'll go first, Gary. You nailed it in the WhatsApp group before.
Well, hang on. Whoa. How's it easy for you and not easy for us? Have you just not had dross or something? You have had a lot of dross.
Well, I don't know if it's easy for you, but it's dead easy for us.
Listen, this is our debut on YouTube. I am not allowing any foot forward from the Reds tonight. Nothing.
No, to be fair, this was the one we said we'll come back to when Millsy mentioned Suarez and Salah, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think, as he said, the majority of it is quite easy. We've gone Alisson, Becker in goal in our lifetime. Don't know whether some older generation might disagree. A lot of them really loved Clements, didn't he?
Yeah.
But for us in our lifetime, we've gone. A pair of us have said Alisson, Becker. Defender, and again easy. Virgil van Dijk. I don't think anyone could even argue with that. The man's just gorgeous, isn't he? We've also gone the same in midfield, local legend, hero Steven Gerrard. Don't think anyone can really argue with that either. You agree with that again, don't you, Phil?
Absolutely, 100%.
And
then the striker.
Yeah, this one for me, I did put in the group Suarez, but for me it's not that clear cut. It could have been Salah, without a doubt. I think if you look at the impact both players have had, even looking back at Fernando Torres as well, the impact that the players had when they came to the club was just, it was, you were excited to go to see them play. As much as the rest of the team was still a good team in all of them, amongst all of them players, them three players, Salah, Suarez, Torres, you're excited to go and see them play. Yeah.
I think for me, what it is, Gary, on a more you can apply this to both players, but on a more frequent basis, if you're looking at both players are going to score, so that call that equal. I'm always expecting Salah to score, but if Liverpool aren't playing well, and I'm looking for one person to absolutely grab the game by the scruff of the neck and drag everyone else up with him, and just be horrible, it's Suarez. I've seen Salah do it as well. I've seen Salah up the tempo, improve everyone around him, take the game by the scruff of the neck. But Suarez does it every week. And it's just that side of things for me that just pushes him just slightly ahead.
Again, when I we talked about it in the group a little bit before we come on, I did put Suarez in, and I probably would stand by that for the reason you're saying. I agree with everything you're saying about him. The man was just like, I think someone put it to me a few years ago. Suarez is the best player on the planet from this planet because Messi and Ronaldo are just aliens. That's what I was put to me, and you can't really disagree because them two are just freaks of nature, aren't they? In their prime, in the way they were, and probably still are, to be fair. They're just on another level to everyone. But in terms of that next level down, for me, he's not that. He went in his prime. He weren't that far below them, and he was by far head and shoulders above everyone else around him.
And just to say how much we love Salah, I'm actually thinking at the moment Salah is the current best player in the world. Just going to put it out there. That's what I think.
Do you know what? I'm not bitter enough to argue that. I think he is.
You're
at
definitely
the moment,
bitter enough
he's
to
up
argue
there,
it, Mills. You're definitely bitter enough.
Oh, I am not.
Go on then, Blues. Is it easy for you then, or?
It's easy for me.
Listen, Mel has grown up in absolute royalty. I've seen Klaus Thompson, so let Mel answer this question.
Careful what you say in midfield, Millsy.
And this is where age comes into it again. But I was just so lucky. So keeper Southall.
Yeah,
can't argue with that. I don't even need to talk about that or go into it. You know, he would always have been your first name on the team sheet, and not only is was he a brilliant keeper, the best. He was best in the world at the time. He was unfortunate he played for Wales in the sense that he didn't get to be seen on the world stage enough. But not only was he the best keeper that I've ever seen play, certainly he's also one of the best people that I've ever met and I've ever come across. And if anyone follows on Twitter, you'll understand why the way
definitely.
he champions like minorities and things is just absolutely brilliant. But he was just, his reflexes were amazing, and just he was out of this world. You talk about someone who's out of this world, he certainly was. Defender, again, same era, Kevin Ratcliffe. The great thing about it was, people talk about high press now. Everton were doing that in the early to mid 80s because Ratcliffe was so quick that he could push right up, because any ball that came over the top, he was always going to get it. I would have put him against anyone in a race. He was brilliant. He was also, he had a real side to him as well. He was a brilliant captain, and you would have always wanted to go into battle with him as well, especially in derby games and things, because he was pretty tough as well. So definitely the best. Midfielder, I might be a little bit controversial here, but I'm going to go Paul Bracewell, and that might surprise some Blues from that era.
I think Mel, I think your dad has just gave your ticket away for Saturday. Now you've said that.
I'm a driver. See, well, I never saw. I was born in '72, so I didn't really see the great.
Just missed it, yeah.
Yeah, I just missed it. So definitely Paul Bracewell. He was very unlucky with an injury that he got, but I think even with that, he made such a difference when he came into that team, and he was just so clever, and he just had everything. He had a great engine, and he was brilliant. And then up front, I'd have to go for Graham Sharp. He was my idol in the 80s. I know younger people would go to Duncan Ferguson, but I would have, even if they'd both been around in the same era, I would have had Sharp over Ferguson every day of the week. I just think he was, and probably because of that goal in '84 at Anfield, I would pick him any day just because of that. So they'd be mine.
They are just magnificent choices, and I think anyone I say now is not going to match that. But I can only say what I've seen. It definitely Neville. I seen Neville, and what a goalkeeper! I seen Neville in the '90s, and he was still so good that I thought, what was he like in the '80s if he's still this good in the '90s? So for me, 100% Neville Southall.
When you said Neville, then I thought you were going with Phil Neville for defender. I think he scored a dive and headed for Liverpool in the derby.
Go away, Gary. Right, defender. It's a toss-up really for me. I think Dave Watson was fantastic, but I also think so underrated for a period of time was Phil Jagielka. I think there was about 3 or 4 years where if we had Jagielka playing for us, we were safe. He was a fantastic centre-half. If you pushed me on both, I would say just Dave Watson. Midfielder, he wasn't with us for a long time, but he was fantastic. It was Gary Speed. He had everything. He could score a goal. He was a captain. He could take the game by the scruff of the neck. He could win a duel. I just think he was a fantastic all-round central midfielder. Maybe a little bit more like, say, Paul Bracewell there. I think Gary Speed maybe in a similar vein of a Paul Bracewell, where he could do bits of everything, and he was a really important cog.
Oh, he was a brilliant player.
Yeah, and centre forward, you've said there, Duncan. Duncan is my absolute hero. He's someone who I just such a connection, and I don't know why. And that's the best thing to say as a football fan.
Crying here, Millsy.
I'm nearly there. I think as a football fan, when you just connect to someone and you don't know why, I think that's what being a football fan is. But the best striker I've seen would be Romelu Lukaku. I think Lukaku was superb.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, they're two top picks, for different reasons. I think Lukaku's probably a more quality player, but in terms of, being an Evertonian and scoring some really important goals, being a leader on the pitch, I can understand the Duncan Ferguson obsession, I call it, that you have.
And do you know what? Do you know what it goes back to? It's going way off topic here, but this is a little side story. When I was a young boy, I was in an all-day hospital, and I had my appendix out, and the Everton team were doing the rounds around Easter. No, it was Easter. It was in 1995, and I think it was the build-up to Ellen Road, the semi-final. And the team were doing Easter eggs, and they were down in the more critical care units, the more where they needed to really shed some joy. And I was on a ward, and I was so excited to see Duncan Ferguson, and I had a program to be signed. I was only a young boy, I was 9 or 10, and the nurse came up and she said, "I'm really sorry, but the Everton team aren't going to come. They're not going to come up to this ward now. They've gone." And I cried my eyes out. I cried and cried and cried. And 10 minutes later, the nurse pulled me out into the corridor, and there was Duncan Ferguson by himself. He'd heard that a young boy was crying, and he came up to see me, and he patted me head, and he said, "I'll see you soon at Goodison, my friends." And I was just like, I will take a bullet for you one day, my friend. I will take a bullet. So I think that's why I love him. Yeah, I think that's why I'm so connected to him. But I can't argue. Graham Sharp, Paul Bracewell, Kev the Rat, and Neville Southall. Wow, amazing.
Well, I'm going to put a bullet in this Everton. Sorry, I'm going to put a bullet in this Everton loving with the next question from Sean Pugh. Bring you back down to earth. He said, "This is the worst constructed squad in the Premier League. Lack of any basic planning for 6+ years. We're facing the perfect storm of injuries to players we literally have no backup for. How can you get to a point where you don't even have under 21s to step up? I had LFC on at the same time tonight. The pathway is clear. Youngsters are able to fill in them games like this and play well. Listen, I know we shouldn't compare to LFC in that aspect, as the players around them are so much better than ours, but still."
So that's after the QPR defeat, I imagine, that came in. Right, just a reactionary comment. I think everybody gets a bit high and a little bit low when things happen. I certainly don't think it's the worst constructed squad in the Premier League. It's got Abdoulaye Doucouré, it's got Ben Godfrey, it's got Jordan Pickford, it's got Damari Gray, it's got Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. How can you call that the worst constructed squad in the Premier League? I understand reacting. I really understand reacting to defeats, but I think that was a bit too much for me.
I think it's harsh. I agree. It's a bit harsh. What you've just said, I mean, the Everton team, there's a brilliant spine there, and there's some great individual players. And I think we're seeing the team spirit being built up again. I don't think anyone was argued that the squad's not a bit thin, but I think we all know the reasons for that. And I think after a bad defeat like that, you're just going to fire off an email like that. I can understand where that's coming from, but I wouldn't 100% agree with it.
To be fair, I don't think he's slagging off like necessarily the first team. I think he's talking about the way the team's being put together, the depth, the planning, the strategy. I think he's criticising all those elements, but we've spoken about that a lot, haven't we? It's
a podcast in itself. I mean, have we brought enough young players through? No. Have the signings over the past 5 or 6 years been good enough? Probably, if you weigh it up, no. But again, I think that was. I mean, Mel, you may disagree. I just think that was reactionary to the QPR defeat. That comment.
Yeah, and you can understand it. We were all hurting last week, and I for one was as well, because I really felt like that was a competition we should have been having a right good go at for loads of different reasons. To give people a lift, we as Evertonians, we need a lift. We haven't had one for a while, since we signed Hammers last year. So yeah, I do think that if someone just sat down and battered on the keyboard, the squad's in. It is thin. We know that we talked about Rondon earlier. The squad is thin, but there's many reasons for that, and it's not necessarily a lot of it isn't down to like incompetence or anything. There's much deeper reasons for that.
Yeah. Okay, try and answer this with just one number each. So rate Rafa's start out of 10. Just give a number. Mills, I'll go to you first.
The cup defeat hurts him. It does. You can't give him a 9 or a 10 because we've gone out of the cup, and I also think that going out the cup and penalties can happen to any Premier League side. So that's not for me.
Shouldn't have got to penalties.
No, you're right. I would give him a 7.
Mel?
I'm going to go 7 as well. I'm going to say 7 when you were saying them for all the same reasons. I think I didn't think, if you look at the injury list that we've got, to see where we are in the league and to see the number of points we've got with that injury list, there's something, and he's making a difference. There's been a couple of times where you can tell there's something that he said at half time, something he's done at half time, or possibly it's just sheer luck, but you can see a reaction, things changing in games. It used to be if we went behind, we lost, and I don't have that feeling anymore. The cup game is deeply disappointing, and I'm taking the 3 points off fairly and squarely for that. But I'm going to 7, and if you'd have asked me to start the season, I wouldn't have thought it to said that. So there we go.
That's a boss point. It's a boss point, isn't it? At the start of the season, if someone would have said, look, you got 13 points come the end of September, and you'd be saying it's a 7 out of 10, I think I'd have took that, Mel.
Definitely.
Are we done, Phil, on the social media?
No, that's it for the social media now.
Okay, we've got about 50.
We got battered though.
We did, didn't we? We'll look whenever and get beat, and our social media and anyone listening on the podcast will know that we get hammered, which is great. I mean, we love people writing into us, but we've got about 15 minutes left of the podcast to cover a couple of games at the weekend and one again tomorrow. Just anyone who's watching on YouTube now, we are about to set up a live GoFundMe to get Gary a bulb because we can't see him anymore.
Do you know what? I've just been looking at that myself, thinking, bloody hell, that's half gone dark in here.
We're gonna put that live, so check the social media to give Gary a bulb.
What about Phil? He looks like
one of them far behind you.
Crime scene things with the dark and
it's like their lights worse than my Wi-Fi.
Phil's got those Turkish teeth, hasn't he? So you get a glow from that. Look, Reds, before we move on to the weekend, you've got a Champions League game home to Porto. There was a social media question earlier saying that listener thought that you should rotate. You've answered that, but let's look ahead to Porto at home. Is that a game that you have to win, that you think you will win? What are your thoughts going into that game?
Porto away it is.
Porto away, sorry.
Yeah, I think for me, as Phil said earlier on, if you can get your points on the board in the Champions League early, then it frees you up to be able to rest your players later on in the last two, 3 games. For me, it's just as important. I want us to go there strong, get the victory, come home, and then prepare for City.
The thing is, Gary, if you don't get the points on the board, you need to get them on the board in and around the Christmas period, don't you? As you're getting in November, December then, and you're having to play full strength teams, and the games are coming thick and fast. So you get it out the way now, and as you say, you rest them then. There's no easy games in the Champions League either. You take your foot off the gas against someone like Porto and they'll punish you. They drew with Atletico, who are the top side, and that's the Champions League. So
that's another big point for me. The fact that we got the win in the first game and the other 2 drew with each other. Now it puts us on the front foot there, where if we can keep winning our games, we're pulling away from them each time. So it's a big point that they drew in their first game with Atletico.
Yeah, because sometimes you can get through with 9 points, can't you, in the Champions League? So it could be one of them. So, yeah. Who do you expect to play then? Absolutely full strength?
Yeah, I probably will expect Tsimikas to come in, I think he'll give Robertson the Champions League off. Whether it's giving him an off or, like I said earlier on, I wouldn't really look at it like that, to be fair. I'd see it as giving Tsimikas his chance. So I think we will see that. Otherwise, maybe Firmino will come in to get more minutes into his legs after his little spell out. Who that's for, I'm not sure. Probably Jota. As we said before, you know, we got his goal there on the weekend, but he hasn't sort of been the same player in terms of his finishing. So he might bring Firmino in for that game for Jota. But again, although that will be rotating, I wouldn't say that's resting players for City. You know, these players that are coming in are good enough to be considered as a near full strength side. So, I'm as I say, I'm expecting us to go strong, and you know, hopefully we'll come away with the 3 points again.
The only question is, we haven't got a permanent solution really at the moment to the injury to Thiago, have we? There's not like, oh yeah, well, it's definitely going to be Milner. That's a difficult one, and it seems to be, the idea might be that if it's a more defensive team, we'll play a more defensive midfielder, and if it's a weaker team, we'll play a more attacking midfielder. So there's no real solution to that. What's your preference?
Again, it's horses for courses for me. You know, you've got the choices there between Naby Keita when he's fit, Jones, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Milner to play alongside Fabinho and Henderson. I think if you go more attacking, you're playing a Jones or an Oxlade-Chamberlain. If you go more defensive, you're playing more a Milner. I think Jones, Keita is more of a box to box, so we can probably do a bit of both. Or he's supposed to be a box to box. He's sort of getting towards that form now, but we haven't seen much of it over the last few years. I haven't really got a preference, to be fair. I just don't think you can ever go wrong playing James Milner.
I agree. That's my preference. I actually think Milner's quite box to box. There's just like you think he can't be, but he can. He was box to box when he was playing right back the other week, so he can definitely do it from midfield. So that'll be my preference, but I guess we'll see.
Do you know what I've just got? I don't know why. I've got a little soft spot for Oxlade-Chamberlain. I don't half will him to do well, but he's just not being good enough at all.
Yeah, I think his Liverpool career.
Has he struggled to come back from that injury, or is that just?
Yeah, big time.
Big time, and it's what he is and what he does. I don't think that's defined very much. I don't think he's really a centre mid. I don't think he's really a number 10. I don't think he's really a winger. I'm not quite sure how and where he fits in. It seems to be the reason people want him to play, the reason that everyone always gives is because he's got the best shot from long range. But for me, that's a desperate reason to play someone.
I think it's more he's willing to have a go. That's one thing we do lack from our midfield. We don't really have players taking shots, or if they do, they certainly don't score that many. Henderson scored his first goal in the Champions League since 2014. You know, and it seems that long as well. It seems that long since he got a last goal. Never mind it just in the Champions League. So for me, that it is a strong reason to play Oxlade-Chamberlain. But again, his form in recent weeks is just not being there at all. So I think he is a big confidence player and a big form player. So once he is playing well, if he can stay fit, he'll be well every week. He'll be a good player every week. But we can't really afford to play him through the bad spell. We need him to be performing now.
Sorry to be really gully. He's also a new dad as well. You never know what's going on. Yeah.
Not just focus, he'll be absolutely knackered.
Yeah. Gary's not far off being a new dad himself. He knows all about that, don't you?
Yeah, but believe me, it's like he's still newborn, my lad. Doesn't sleep. I want to go and put this light on because this is getting ridiculous.
I was going to say we're trying to get subscribers, Gary, not lose them. No one can see you. Here we go.
Oh, turn it back off quick.
His wife shouting the lecky bell. The meter's going up.
Gary, prediction then?
I'm going to go strong performance and we'll win 3-0.
Okay, I'm going to go 2-0.
Okay, but that brings you straight in. Let's keep it you. You've got, a huge game on Sunday. Manchester City versus Liverpool. You've played Chelsea already. Chelsea have already played City. There seems to be a lot of big games early doors in the season already. We're not yet into October, and the big three are playing each other. I'm going to ask a question here, which you're going to hate. Would you take a draw now?
No.
Really? City away?
It's City at home.
I don't know.
City home.
City at home. Never ever take a draw at home.
No.
Just wouldn't do it. Yeah, never. Say, you ask Man City fans, would they take a draw Liverpool at the Etihad? They'd say no. but I bet you they'd say yeah away. I bet you they'd take a draw this weekend.
I don't know. I think, Gary, City need to want this more than us in some ways. With the start that they've had, they dropped a couple of points and stuff. I think City really need to come out big time.
I think it's more important for City to not lose this game than it is for them to win it.
Just not let us extend that gap. Do you think that'll reflect in how they set up?
Yeah, I think they'll do what they've done a few years ago, where you won't see Walker going forwards as much as you normally would. You'll see him sort of holding back and stopping not giving us any of that space that we like in the opposition half. He's the one with the legs in their back four. He's the one who's able to recover if they need to. So I think that if you remember back, that when I think they missed a penalty, Mahrez missed a penalty and we drew the game. That game, we'd keep holding their fullbacks back, stifled our attack, and I think you'll see something similar to that again.
I think Klopp may have anticipated that last season, and what he done was we actually went 4-2-4 against City.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, we went to that towards the end of the game at Brentford, the league game before we play City. I was thinking, is this a little practice? Is that why he's stuck with it? Is it like a little run out, a little practice go of it before we play City again? In anticipation of them holding the fullbacks back and a way to try and break them down if they do sit in at Anfield.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we did do it. You've seen certainly in the bigger games, we've tried to start quick. Even that Chelsea game, I know they got a man sent off later on, but in the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they couldn't live with us because we were really putting the pressure on them. We're really trying to push forward and get a goal. We never managed to in that game, but I think you might see something similar again against City. We'll try and put it to them early doors and see whether they can live with us. And based on that, it wouldn't surprise me if we did go with all four.
Quick question. Tsimikas, let's just say he plays against Porto and he plays well. Starts against City for you then off the back of that?
Oh, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because it's not, for me, the one thing that Robertson brings that maybe we haven't been able to see with Tsimikas yet is the heart. Even if he's not playing well, he'll always be giving it 110%. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Tsimikas won't be trying as hard as he can, but it's like, for me, Robertson's like a Scouser, and he'll feed off the fans more than what Tsimikas would. And I think in the atmosphere that we're going to get in this game, I think Robertson's probably the better player to play, even if his form's not quite there.
I think I'd agree with that, definitely. I think it's going to be a really difficult question to answer if Tsimikas ends up with 2 assists or something like that midweek.
That's the game of his life midweek.
Yeah, be a problem then, won't it? Okay. Are we ready for a prediction?
Yeah, I'm torn between it being free flow and high scoring or whether it'll be tight. I'm going to go more tight because I think City will need it to be tight. I'll say Liverpool will win 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that for the same reasons. I think it'll be close, and I'll go 1-0 as well. Just going to turn my light on.
I was going to say, you're doing the Gary there. You're getting quite dark as well. What's going on in South Liverpool tonight? Look, Mel, let's move on. You've just said there that you're going to Old Trafford on Saturday morning.
We are,
the manager said this. Well, the manager said last week that there's no chance that Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison will go away with their countries in the following week, which says to me they're not going to be fit. I hate to be negative, I really do. I just think it's going to be a really tough ask for Everton to get something on Saturday. Are you more positive? Are you more confident than I am?
I wasn't until Saturday there, just gone. And as I told you, we were in Manchester on Saturday afternoon, evening, night, and met quite a few United fans who'd been at the match.
Right.
And they were very, very downhearted. Very, very downhearted. Sort of agreed with the points that we were making, that it's a great collection of players, but are they being coached to the full potential? Is the game plan right? That sort of thing. Good few ways, they were clearly all hurting after Saturday. So is there going to be a bounce back on Saturday? The whole debacle over the penalty and all that kind of thing, does that mean that that'll bring their camp closer together, or could there be some ruptures behind the scenes? So you always like a bit of that when you're playing a team. But my horrible fear is that we'll be on the receiving end of the bounce back on Saturday. as you just said, two of our best players doesn't look like they're going to be playing. At least it looks like, well, you know, Pickford was back and looked pretty good the other day, so that's a positive. But yeah, without DCL and Richarlison, I'd be feeling a little bit nervous. I wasn't that confident. Talking to those United fans on Saturday made me think, hang on a minute, there might be something in this. But yeah, I'd take a point. I'd be like the lads were saying about City going to Anfield. I would definitely take a point on Saturday. I think that'd be good for us.
Well, listen, I would take a point all day on Saturday. I think Man United, despite the result last Saturday at home to Aston Villa, I think they're going to be there or thereabouts come April and May. I think they're a really good side. They're a really dangerous side. Any side that has Cristiano Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes in there, you're going to have a hard day. You're going to. For me, it would be probably the same team as Saturday, despite the fact that, I mean, I know I'm going to sound unfair here, because he's unfit, but Rondon's not doing a lot for me, but there's nobody else. We haven't got anybody else to play for us. So for me, it's the same team. What about you? Would you maybe revert to a different system, maybe three at the back or wing backs or the same?
No, I think we'll see the same team, I've got to be honest. I just think we're so short players that the squad just isn't deep enough. We all know that. There's loads of different reasons for it. I think we'll probably see the same team. I don't really think the same team is good enough to beat an on-form United. They've got a very, very good squad. And if they're firing on all cylinders on Saturday, we should be very happy to come away with points. It might not be as much down to the goals we concede. It's the fact that we might not be able to score. But you've just said it. You know, when you hear that Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes, it makes me shiver. I've got to be honest. It worries me. So. Although I think Mina's done pretty well. I think he's looking okay. Godfrey's coming back in.
Yeah.
So defensively, okay, a lot of people saying Lucas Dean isn't being as good this season as he has previously, and you know, should he be open to criticism? There was almost a feeling like we couldn't criticise him because he had been one of our best players the last couple of seasons. He was a little bit patchy at the weekend there from what I saw. So defensively, I do think we're looking slightly better, but I just think we're lucky if we're going to be up front. And I'll be happy with the points. I'll be very happy if I'm driving home from that match on Saturday. We've got a point, definitely.
Oh, I hope you are. Listen, I'll go first. The prediction, I'm going to go 1-1. What about yourself?
I'm going to say 1-1 as well, because I look at that team and I'm thinking, I know we scored 2 on Saturday, but you know, Gray's all right, Townsend is okay, but there's not a huge amount of goals coming from that team at the moment. Well, strikers. So yeah, I'd be very, very happy with a 1-1. I would take that every day.
Don't you feel sorry for them with all these injuries?
I don't know. You know what I was thinking before? Millsy wouldn't give us anything to do with injuries last season.
Don't even dare. So last year they had Thiago injured, which is a positive for them because it's Thiago. You had Virgil van Dijk injured, which I'll give you. You have Matip and Gomez injured, which you can't decide which one's better between yourselves anyway. You'd argue every season who's better. It wasn't that bad.
Not dragging me into that again, Mills. You've got no chance.
I'm trying to make that. Nearly getting them in. I think we're 90 minutes into our debut show on YouTube. Thank you so much, everybody who's lasted 90 minutes. We're going to close it down, but Mel, our amazing podcast with you and your legendary father, Mr. Colin Harvey, is still available on acrosstheparkpodcast.co.uk. You've been really kind, a really great friend to us. We were in your dad's home and I've told private stories to my wife and my friends, which I could not believe, and I still can't believe to this day. I sat in Colin Harvey's house and interviewed him. So again, thank you so much. I've told you this before, but thank you so much for that. It was one of the best days of my life to sit there. My family, if my dad was here now, he'd be so proud of the fact that I sat in Colin Harvey's house and interviewed him. So you made that happen. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us on the debut show of YouTube.
Thank you very much for having me. You could have given me more time to get my hair done.
Me too.
Yeah, when you're looking at me like the fella off Gogglebox, you're looking at Phil and Gary. You're looking absolutely fantastic, Mel. It's been a pleasure, and you got an open invite to come on anytime you want. Thank you very much, Mel, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, boys. I really enjoyed it, and the lights are just going out here as well by the looks of things. So the timing is good.
Good time. I think we're all ready to finish. From myself, Ian Mills, from Mel, from Phil, Robertson, Gary Murray. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube, and if you are listening on the podcast, why not get home and load YouTube up? Give us a subscription. Enjoy the football, guys. Enjoy the weekend. We are back next week. See you then.